Have you ever felt the pull of a new beginning, even if you weren't sure exactly what it would bring? For one sim, that gentle call is guiding her to a new home and a fresh start. She's stepping away from the bright lights of Del Sol Valley, leaving the spotlight behind for a magical mid-century retreat tucked among the trees. Join me today as we build her home and set the stage for her next chapter, the opening scene of a story waiting to unfold. So, what are we building today? Well, today we're going to build a one-bedroom, one-bathroom mid-century hideaway designed to reconnect our sim with nature and with herself. You'll see as we go through, I try to make it almost disappear by using wood tones and greens similar to those around the lot to help it blend in, as well as reflective and transparent elements like glass and water. So what inspired today's build? Well, I honestly love mid-century design. It's one of my favorites, and I really wanted to build something as a homage to this particular era. One thing I particularly love that I think is still really common in design today is the connection to nature. There's often large windows and sliding glass doors and open plan layouts to bring in sunlight and greenery and to connect the outdoors with the indoors. I just think it creates such a lovely, calm, peaceful atmosphere. So I'm hoping that this build will reconnect our sim with nature and with herself. I also love the simple, flowing spaces of mid-century design, the clean lines, the open floor plans, the built-in furniture. It all just makes the home feel uncluttered and easy to live in. So for our sim today, I try and keep the home quiet and peaceful. I actually limited electronics like TVs and computers, which might be a controversial choice for gameplay, but I was thinking maybe this sim, she's trying to disconnect from the wider world. So instead, I created spaces for art and music and yoga, spaces that can help her recenter. As I said, I'm almost trying to make this home disappear into its surroundings, mirroring our actor's wish to quietly slip out of the spotlight for a while. So our actress may not be on the big stage right now, but she still loves an audience. If you're enjoying today's video, tapping the like button is just like giving it a round of applause. And subscribing? Well, that's how you book your ticket for our next speed build adventure. So today, everyone, my question for you is, have you ever felt the need for a fresh start, even if you didn't know exactly where it might lead? Our actress Sim, she's been feeling this way too. And for her, that quiet pull came after years of flashing cameras and applause and scripts piling up on every surface in her home. Life in Del Sol Valley was very glamorous, yes, but after a while, it also became exhausting. Paparazzi were always waiting outside her doors, reviews were harsher than ever, and her personal life, well, let's just say that relationships weren't surviving the glare of the spotlight. So slowly but surely, she began to crave something softer, something private, an escape where she could breathe and think and simply be herself. So she made a decision to sell most of her belongings and leave the city behind and search for a secluded hideaway where she could rest and reflect and rediscover herself. I imagine that she was probably a little nervous, but also very excited. What would she find? What kind of life waited for her beyond the noise and the lights? And after searching the internet and magazines, eventually there it was, the perfect mid-century retreat tucked among the trees. But every quiet moment has a beginning, and soon we'll step back to where it all started, in a small town named Willow Creek where a young dreamer discovered her love of performance. But before we get there, I wanted to talk to you about the build and what we're doing right now, because one of the most challenging parts of this build was, how is our sim actually going to get inside? I tried so many things, so many different steps and platforms to try and figure out a clever, aesthetically pleasing but also practical way for our sim to access the main house that I've built here. The first thing I tried was to try and create some of these wide mid-century steps with platforms, and I like these because of the clean lines and functionality. It's very mid-century, except they weren't actually functional because I couldn't work out how to connect them with this deck that I built. And then you can see I tried a lower deck, hoping it would be easier to find some steps that would connect it with the upper deck, but I had the same problem here as well. So something I always try and bear in mind when I'm building is that sometimes the simplest solution is the best. And we're going to revisit these steps a little later to see what they finally end up looking like once I've given them a little more thought. And I promise, after many creative experiments, we do land on something that actually worked. Looking at this build now, you might be surprised to learn that my original intention was to make this a tiny house. I love watching TV shows about tiny houses and tiny living, and often you hear people say that they want to sell everything and strip their life back and live tiny as a response to the feeling that they're somehow weighed down by it all. And by stripping their physical possessions, they feel like they're also stripping the pressures that come with their everyday life, the expectations, the routines, the noise of the world. For some people, it seems to be a way to pause and reset and rediscover what really matters, and to find space to breathe and think, and in many cases to create as well. I would love to know, have you ever thought about living in a tiny home? Would you love it, or is it just not for you? I was thinking for our actress Sim, she might have done this because fame, as we said, has left her exhausted and disconnected and just longing for some peace and quiet, and selling her belongings and moving to a small mid-century retreat could let her step out of that whirlwind. But that being said, this home just kept growing and growing as I continued to build. And I think it was because, firstly, I think it was because of the angles I'd chosen here, and I really felt like this house needed a proper staircase. So to connect the lower floor and the upper floor with these angles, we needed just a little more room so that we could still have objects in the house in a way that Sims could get around and actually use the place just for functionality of gameplay. So I was thinking, how could we fit this slightly larger home into the storyline of our actor? And I thought, well, she's really searching for space, for room to breathe. Because I think, with the paparazzi and everyone just being interested in her and her personal life, it probably feels a bit cramped, literally and metaphorically sometimes. So I was thinking she was probably seeking just a little bit more space, just a little bit of room to breathe. I tried to incorporate the principles of tiny living into a slightly larger space by keeping everything intentional, choosing furniture and decor and objects with purpose, so that every piece should bring either joy or serve a function or both. I also tried really hard to think about the flow and the openness and how our sim would move from space to space. So this whole upper floor, this is just going to be one big room just to create that visual openness. What I'm trying to do here is use the lines in the wall. I think that's exactly what they're called in the game, the lines in the wall, these kind of vertical wooden slats, to kind of just create some division while still keeping everything nice and open and keep the flow of the space. So you still have the eye line through, but it also just helps you divide off the space a little bit. And I think this is just such a lovely nod to mid-century style. I feel like whenever you see a tour of a celebrity home or some kind of mid-century renovation, they always have these slats like this, either going vertically or horizontally. So that's what I was trying to do here. These are from the Eco Lifestyle Pack. So let's step back into our sim story and see where her journey began. Before fame and big stages, our actress had a world much smaller and softer, but no less full of dreams. Let's take a step back to where it all began, in a modest home in Willow Creek, where a young dreamer first discovered her own voice. She grew up surrounded by community events and school plays and the hum of a neighborhood that cheered for every small accomplishment. Even as a child, her talent and her presence set her apart. She was ambitious and creative and perhaps a little perfectionist, yes, but always kind and warm, and people were just drawn to her. Drama Club became her stage, her music and her acting companions, and her world seemed full of possibility. Those small, early moments of creativity and performance would eventually carry her far from this quiet town. But stepping into the spotlight for the first time wasn't as simple as she imagined. So let's have a look at this kitchen. I used cabinets from the Dream Home Decorator pack. As you'll probably see, I do go back and forth quite a few times on the color scheme. I just find it so hard when using wood tones in The Sims because very often between packs and sometimes even within the same pack, they just don't quite match. And I have to decide for myself how much does that really matter. It's kind of hard when you're a bit of a perfectionist. You kind of want everything to match perfectly. And sometimes I think in this game, you have to just be okay with letting things be a little bit mismatched because let's be honest, that happens in real life as well. That's realistic, especially with older buildings. People add their own bits and pieces here and there and their own character and personality. So sometimes it does become a bit of a tapestry of different styles and colors. You know, I don't often look back at builds with regrets. Usually I'm quite thorough and I'm quite happy with how they end up. But this kitchen might be one of those rare moments where I wish I had done it a little bit differently. And I mean that in terms of the layout. I wish I'd rotated it 90 degrees so that when you're sitting at the kitchen island, you can look out that window because the way I have it at the minute, it's facing away from the window. So if you're having your breakfast there or something like that, you're actually facing away from the view. And the reason I did it like that was to keep more of an open flow so you can move freely between the kitchen and the little living area beside it. And I do think that works. I do think there's something to say for that, but it just seems such a shame that when you're sitting there, you can't easily look out at the view without needing to turn your head. Maybe one theory I've just come up with, maybe the jazz musician who built the house, he really loved working at this kitchen island when he was cooking and he really liked standing there and looking at the view as he was prepping food. So maybe that's why he built it that way. But let me know, if you were building this house, how would you work this little kitchen? What I'm doing now, this might look kind of random, but I'm trying to decide on a color scheme because as I say, I was trying to go for colors that help the building blend with its surroundings, but also I didn't just want to use brown on brown on brown. I think that might have got a bit boring after a while, so I was looking for a few fun pops of color. And sometimes I find that if you don't know what those pops of color could be, a nice way to find inspiration is to look for maybe some decorative pieces that include the colors you know you want to use, but then also some colors that can provide you some inspiration for your color scheme. And what I settled on with this picture here that you can see I put in the living room, I really liked that it included some browns that matched the walls and the floors that I'd gone with, but then it also tied in so many other really nice colors as well. Some greens, even some purples and yellows. And so I used this picture as the inspiration for the colors of my design. You'll see I included this cottage living fridge, and cottage living, it doesn't scream mid-century modern as a whole, that pack, but this fridge just has a really nice retro vibe to it, and I think it works really well in this space. It also comes in some really lovely colors as well. The bar stools are also from the Dream Home Decorator pack, and I like how they come in some really nice colors that match the cabinets. And I ended up using the stove and the hood and the sink all from Home Chef Hustle. I really liked how they all matched and it brought the design together a little bit as well. So now we're moving over into this little, I'm calling it a living room, living nook, fireside nook, chill out zone, all of the above. And you'll see I started with the chairs facing the fireplace. I think that's a natural thing or something I usually do is have the chairs pointing towards the fireplace like this. But I turn them out so that they're facing the view because I thought if she's not going to have a TV, she can watch the view instead, which is probably way more soothing and relaxing to her at this time in her life. You'll see I end up going for them in this lovely yellow color and I was really pleased with how they looked next to this picture I chose. It all started coming together so well at this point. The two yellow chairs are from the Get Famous pack and then the other chair I chose here, I really like this one. I think it's really funky. That's from the City Living pack. And I think even though the color scheme is quite different, the clean lines of all of these chairs, it brings it all together quite nicely, I thought. This stone wallpaper that I put behind the little fireplace, that's from the Seasons pack. And I included that because I feel like whenever you see mid-century houses, they always have stone chimneys, don't they? They have these lovely natural elements. So I put that there as a nod to the theme and to the design. Now, I knew that this space needed a rug because it was just going to make it so much more more cozy and so much more cool as well. But as you can see, I went through so many options before settling on the final choice. And I'm so glad that I was patient and I tried so many different rugs because I found this one that was not only the perfect color scheme, but it was also the perfect shape. It just fit into this corner so well. This rug is from the Seasons pack and I think it looks so cool here next to this picture I chose. I also chose this bookshelf, which is from the City Living expansion pack, and I tried to make it look like it was some kind of custom unit with these vertical lines here. Like maybe it was all one piece and it was all one divider. I thought it might be a little precarious because, if this was real life, maybe some of the books might fall down the stairs if you were to bump into the bookshelf or something like that. There's nothing holding them on at the back. But for The Sims, this doesn't really matter, and I thought it looked really cool. I also found this kind of retro old-fashioned looking camera from the base game, and I thought maybe this was a little hint that she's going to pick up photography while she's here. Maybe she's going to take an interest in wildlife photography or something new, something that allows her to be creative in a way that she's never done before. So just as building this home required some careful choices, deciding where to place glass and wood and each cozy corner, our Sim's life was also full of decisions that shaped her path. Her talent was noticed, and suddenly she was cast in a breakthrough role, moving to Del Sol Valley to chase opportunity and fame and the thrill of city life. Auditions and glamorous parties and public scrutiny became her daily routine. Her rise to the top was so quick. She received critical acclaim, a stylish celebrity home, and experiences that most could only dream of. But after a while, the applause felt hollow, the reviews turned harsh, and public attention became overwhelming, and her personal life strained under the pressure. Even surrounded by luxury and recognition, she found herself longing for quiet, for a space that was truly her own. She realized it was time to step away from the spotlight and seek something different, a life more intimate, slower, and rooted. And so the search began for a retreat where she could breathe, create, and live quietly. What do you think this new chapter would look like? Speaking of peace and quiet, I love this little bedroom. I don't know what it is lately, but I've been really drawn to the idea of having bedrooms on the lower floor and living spaces on the upper floor. There's just something so cozy about a bedroom tucked away down below. So that's what I did here. She's got her private areas, her bedroom and her bathroom on the lower floor. This is actually one of my favorite beds. I love the curtains. I love how it's somehow whimsical and modern and clean at the same time. I just think that's such a lovely combination. This is from the City Living pack if you're looking for it. I went for a slightly cooler color scheme down here, cooler as in temperature cooler. I went for blues and grays because I just think they're so peaceful and relaxing. And I really wanted this space to feel like a tranquil little hideaway for her. I chuckled to myself when I was thinking, how much wardrobe space do we want to give this Sim? Because she is trying to minimalize and downsize her things, as I was saying. But she is also a celebrity, and I imagine she's picked up some amazing costume pieces over the years. Maybe she's got some dresses from some red carpet events, props from old movies. Some of those things might be very sentimental, so I thought, well, maybe she would like a double wardrobe down here, and there is space for it. I really like this little wardrobe and how it's skinny and it kind of nestles into this space really well here. So she's got quite a good amount of storage without actually taking up too much space. I tried to create these custom wall lights using these boards from Eco Lifestyle. I really love all the different wood tones in here. And then a little bit later over the top, I'll place some wall lights from the Dine Out pack just to create something personal and unique down here. Maybe this was an original feature of the house. After quite a lot of deliberation, as you probably saw, I chose this particular picture from behind the bed. And it's honestly one of my favorites in the entire game. It's from the Love Struck pack and it's called Timeless Elegance, a classic collection. There's a few different variations of it. And in the little description, it says many things. But one thing it says is celebrating the beauty of humanity through a series of different different figures. And I just really like them. I think they're so beautiful. This room across the hallway, this is going to be her bathroom. I put this series of small windows high up here because I thought it'd be really lovely to be lying in this bathtub looking up at the trees. I thought that would be so relaxing. So you actually get quite a lot of natural light in here while still keeping the privacy as well. I also tried to build a custom shower down here using the glass wallpapers as a little screen. I just wanted it to feel indulgent and relaxing. Maybe it's almost like with this natural stone, it's like standing in a waterfall outside. It's bringing that outside in, those elements again, but in a different way in this space. And the stone walls, they match the stone chimney that we have upstairs as well. So it ties the two levels together in that way as well by using the same materials. The shower is from the Love Struck pack. The sink that I chose is from the Get Famous pack, and the toilet is from the Island Living pack. I thought all the browns and the blacks just create this nice muted, relaxing color palette down here, almost like you're in a natural cave. The floors I used in here, this is the only space where I used a different flooring to the wood that we have everywhere else. I used this one from the Grange Mudroom kit, and I've said it, I must have said it in about 2 or 3 of my recent videos, but I really love this flooring for bathrooms because it just looks so durable, which makes sense because it's designed for mudrooms, but it comes in some really lovely colors as well, so I used that down here too. And then the lights, they're from the Tiny Living pack, and I just thought they added a nice little variety of color in here, a nice little pop without being too overwhelming. I find it really interesting how they have that warm orange color, the bright pink, and then also blue. It's unexpected, but they work really well together, these colors. I built some flower beds around the trees because I didn't want it to look like the trees were completely so tightly against the deck, if that makes sense. I wanted it to look like there was maybe a little hole that had been cut for the trees so that they could poke through and still grow and expand as trees do, so they weren't too closely confined in this space. So I thought, just to disguise that, I'll put some little flower beds around the trees, and then we can pretend that there's a space cut out for them in the deck. It also makes it look like a little natural garden up here, which I think is really nice. I wanted to share one little trick with you that I discovered whilst I was doing the roof and the glass walls that are attached to it, because usually when we're changing those walls around a roof, the ones which are connected to the roof holding it up, they all have to change as one. So for example, if we wanted them to be all glass on this particular roof, all 3 sides would have to change. But I was actually able to use a half wall on this front side, which meant that this side could match the wood while the other 2 sides could be glass. And I was actually really pleased with this. It just gave me a little bit more flexibility when I was designing the roof and the overall look of the building. I hope that makes sense. That was really hard for me to explain, but if you have any questions about how to do that, just let me know in the comment section. I'm always happy to explain things further. I also put some little flowers up on the roof because we do have the green roof, which I think looks really nice, but I think adding plants on top of the grass, it just makes it look a little bit more natural and textured, I suppose. And also, again, because we do have that tree poking through the roof, it disguises the fact that the roof is completely consuming the tree, and we can imagine that there's a decent sized hole for the tree up here too. I built this little yoga studio for her, and I covered it completely with glass walls because I thought it'd be a lovely way for her to still feel like she's outside even when it's raining or cold or stormy, because this world, it does get quite a lot of rain, so this will help her connect to nature when she's doing her yoga, no matter what the weather. But one really weird thing, you can see I'm putting columns on 3 of the 4 corners of the building just to make it look like there's a bit more support holding up the roof. For some reason, it would not let me place a column in that 4th corner. I have no idea why that was a problem for the game, but if you think you know, please enlighten me. I would be absolutely fascinated to know what was going wrong here and why I couldn't do this. In the end, to disguise it, I do put the door on a corner or I create a diagonal wall for the door so it looks like the door is part of the structure and it doesn't really matter that there's a column missing there. I think if I lived here, this would be one of my favorite spaces, and it might help me keep up with a daily yoga routine. I love yoga, but I really struggle to do it every day. However, if I had a spot like this, I think I would find it a lot easier. So she's got her yoga mat, she's got her meditation pillow. I did them in this lovely soft pink color. I just thought that was really beautiful against the wooden floor. And then I also put down lots of different pots. Some of them are from the base game and some of them are from Enchanted by Nature. So if you want to build here, you can customize it a little bit. You can choose your favorite plants to put in these plant pots and make it your own. I also put down this gramophone, which is from the high school years pack. As I was saying, I didn't include too many electronics, so I don't think she'd necessarily have a device that could play the radio. But I thought maybe playing records might be a lovely throwback, something that connects her to the history of the house and the space, and also lets her enjoy music in a different way. And then I thought, well, what about if part of her reconnecting to herself and reconnecting to nature, what about if part of that for her was about growing her own food? Maybe when she was a child and she lived in Willow Creek, maybe she really loved gardening. Maybe it was an activity that she took part in with her parents or her grandparents, something that they did as a family, growing vegetables and flowers. That's something I used to do with my grandparents when I was a little girl, and I have some really happy memories of that. And I sometimes think, oh, wouldn't it be nice to rediscover that now as an adult? Because it's not really something I do anymore. So maybe this reconnecting to herself and to her history and to her heritage, maybe part of that is growing her own food and using it in the kitchen. And this little spot here looks perfect because it gets sun and it also gets shade, which is great for plants. You'll see I tried to create this custom plant out here by combining this big vase, which is from the Spa Day pack, with this plant, which is from Cottage Living, and I sized up the plant so it was really, really big. And I think it looks really cool, the combination of the two of them. If you want to do this too, play around with vases and plants, you just need to make sure you turn on the Move Objects cheat by hitting Control, Shift, and C to open the cheat bar, and then typing in bb.moveobjects space on, and then you can play around and overlap these different pieces as well and see what you can create and see what you can put together. These lounges are from the base game, and I combined them with a coffee table from Tiny Living and a rug from Fitness to create a really nice relaxation area out here. And then up on this second deck, one thing that really surprised me about this deck, originally I was thinking, oh, we probably won't do too much out here because it's facing away from the main view. It's mostly looking at the trees. But when I started looking at it more, I thought this deck is really nice because out of all the areas of the house, this is the area which feels most like a tree house. You really feel like you're up in the trees here, away from the rest of the world. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to make it really special. So I combined this partition, which is from Businesses and Hobbies, put it against the wall to create what I thought might be some architectural detailing. I combined that with these planters, which are also from Businesses and Hobbies and come in very similar, if not the same, wood tones, to just add a bit more visual interest up here and a bit more interest to the walls as well. She's also got some activities up here. She's got an easel so she can paint. And then she's also got a nature press as well, which is from Enchanted by Nature. So she can press flowers up here. I just thought that those would be really nice, relaxing, soothing hobbies out here. Once I put down the partition from Businesses and Hobbies, I got inspired to make more what I thought could be interesting architectural details. So I moved back downstairs just very briefly and I placed down these sculptures from Get to Work by the door. I thought they looked like sculptural details, yes, but also very natural, the way that they wind and grow up the wall. It's almost like golden ivy or something like that, like a climbing plant. And I just thought that would be a really interesting little detail to see as you approach the front door. Just a really lovely way to be welcomed home when you come back. And then I was thinking, what else can we do up here? And I thought, well, she doesn't really have a dining table as such. She does have the Peninsula Island, but it might be nice to have a dining table because I was thinking for our gameplay, maybe eventually she might like to connect with the community in this world. Once she's done some rediscovery and some reconnection to herself, maybe she'll be ready to emerge like a butterfly from a cocoon and she's going to make some friends and some lifelong connections here. So I thought a dining table might be a nice spot for her to do that when she, in her own time, feels ready to reconnect. Maybe she's starting to think about some long-term goals, and perhaps she's beginning to realize I need to make some friends who like me, who appreciate me for who I am, and they're not just there to make a quick dollar off me or are interested in me because of my money or my fame or my influence. I really want to make some friends who appreciate me for who I am. So in time, I can see her building some relationships around this table we put out here. I did put some string lights from the debug menu up here. If you want to do this too, you might find you just have to wiggle them around a bit to get them looking right. But after a few attempts, I was able to make them look like they were sitting nicely in the trees, and I think they're a really lovely touch. They really add to this fun, whimsical treehouse vibe out on this back deck. And then these little lanterns from the backyard kit, they come in some really fun colors, and I put them on this pedestal, which is from Get to Work. I think they just add a really lovely pop of color. I nestled them in a few different places around this deck, just to add a bit of fun and playfulness. From the moment our Sim saw this mid-century modern retreat tucked into the trees with a deck that catches the morning sun, she knew it was meant for her. I don't know if you've ever had one of those moments where you just know you're in the right place at the right time. Well, that's how our Sim felt when she looked at this building. I was trying to think about her routine and what she would do throughout her day here. I think in the morning she would practice yoga and meditation, followed by a nice cup of tea and journaling. Then maybe in the afternoon she does some painting or she composes some music. Maybe sometimes she even practices her old acting monologues in the mirror. But this time she discovers a new joy when she's doing it because she's not got the pressure of an upcoming audition or she's not trying to impress a listener. It's just for her and her own exploration. Maybe sometimes she wanders into the village of Henford-on-Bagley and catches little glimpses of the headlines in the newspaper and chuckles to herself about all the conspiracy theories about her disappearance. Maybe headlines like actress last seen riding a llama into the woods or mystery woman spotted in forest wearing pajamas and reading poetry. All in all, her days are peaceful here and full of creativity. But before our Sim even arrived, this mid-century retreat had its own story. Who first called it home? I was trying to think about who built this home because I don't think our actress Sim was the first person to live here. I think the building already had a story when she arrived. I think this home's been here for a few decades now. Maybe it was a jazz musician, an individual who was full of energy and charisma. The city clubs in the 1960s were crowded and noisy, but here tucked among the trees there was space to play and to improvise and to gather friends for small, intimate concerts. But that's just my idea. I would love to know, who do you think built this home? Just as our Sim's journey required balance and careful steps, so too does designing a home, where every choice from wood to glass shape how the space feels. Take this massive cantilever, for example. I don't know if you've ever taken the time to look at mid-century builds from the 50s and 60s. Some of them, they just seem to float, with rooms stretching out into the air as though they're leaning forward towards the horizon. And I just love that because they appear almost weightless, and I think there's a real magic in that cantilever. If you don't know what I mean by cantilever, you can have a building which is rooted to maybe the earth or to a lower floor on one side, while the other side leans out and appears to almost not be supported by anything at all. It looks like it's floating or hovering. In the mid-20th century, the architects were creating homes with these bold overhangs, and they became icons of a hopeful future, echoing the excitement of space travel and new technologies. And one really lovely, just practical perk of these is they create these lovely shaded areas underneath. So you can create a sheltered garden corner or maybe a lovely seating area or an open walkway beneath the space. And I just personally think they look really cool. It's interesting with this build, there's way more usable living space on the deck outside than there is inside the house, which wasn't really my intention. It's just something that happened as I was building. But I thought in the end, how perfect, because she can do so many activities out here. She can work out, she can garden, she can read. I'd love to know, when you're building homes homes for your Sims? Do you like creating lots of outdoor spaces for them as well, or do you prefer decorating indoor spaces? Or is it a mix of both? What I really love about this Sim story is that it reminds me that every ending is just the start of a new beginning. In this quiet mid-century retreat, she's finding joy in art and nature and simple rituals. But life is always moving forward. So what do you think? Will she slowly reconnect with the Headford on Bagley community? Will she stay in this forested hideaway forever? Or will she eventually return to Del Sol Valley on her own terms? Her story is still unfolding, and each day brings new discoveries. And the best part? You can continue to explore, decorate, and shape her world along the way. If you'd like to play here too, I'm going to put it on the gallery as the Mid-Century Retreat. And you can find all of my creations by searching for the hashtag SimsBuildsChill. If you love the cantilevered charm, nature-filled spaces, and cozy hobby corners of this mid-century treehouse, you might also enjoy how we carried those ideas into this shipping container home. Click here to watch this build next.